There are a lot of ways that the 2025 NFL draft could end up going for Baltimore, from great outcomes to not so great outcomes. And NFL draft analysts across the board are finding fits for the Ravens, as well as outlining some nightmare scenarios, but not for the Ravens, for the rest of the NFL pertaining to Baltimore. So be sure to stay tuned. We have a lot coming up here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are here. Welcome back. Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We are your daily Ravens podcast, and I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day as well. Free and available on all podcasting platforms, including video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and as an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here, where we, even on the weekends, have some bonus episodes. We go live after every single Ravens game. And of course, every single weekday, we have your daily Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Back here with me, it is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail. Q, there's so much surrounding the draft as we are creeping up on just 1 week away. We've been talking about this thing for months, and the fact that we are almost here, we have almost arrived at the big moment. It feels like it is so close, yet so far away. There are tons of mock drafts all across the board, and for this Ravens team, we know that their goal is to win a Super Bowl. And while everybody's talking about, hey, star power, that doesn't just come from your veterans. We've seen one of the main reasons the Ravens have been so successful and so consistent over their franchise history is finding value with guys on rookie contracts and getting rookie contributions, which we've talked about, you and I. They got that last year from multiple guys.
Yeah, they did. I thought last year's draft was, a good, strong contribution with obviously Nate Wiggins being able to do what he did. TJ Tampa playing on special teams. Walker playing on special teams. Even got a chance to get a little burn in the Giants game, score himself a touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson. But yeah, those were guys where you were like, all right, Adisa Isaac, kind of saw a little bit of him when he was healthy enough to play. But overall, I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for guys to come in and contribute right away. Guys to not just sit there and think that, this is a redshirt year. This has to be one of those cases where you can't miss if you're the scouting / general manager side of things, trying to build upon a team that is built to win now.
And that's exactly what it is for this Ravens team, because, again, you have to balance out the present with the future. We've talked about that, where you can't just go all in this year. Not everybody can be the Los Angeles Rams of a couple of years ago when they traded seemingly every single pick they had, and they end up winning the Super Bowl. That was a big risk they took. It paid off for them. But for the Ravens, we know, Q, they don't operate that way. They like having sustainability through the draft. They like finding contributors to the draft, and they like finding players that evolve over the years and can grow into really good football players. But with the way this draft is stacked up, Q, I think the Ravens and a lot of other teams will find multiple quality starters when you're talking about not just day one, but all 3 days. But when you talk about round one, the Ravens always seem to find, or at least most of the time, find a guy that falls right into their lap. It's happened. Can't even count how many times. I know everybody, the most recent example, you can point to a Kyle Hamilton in 2022, and even Tyler Linderbaum, that same draft. So they got 2 in 1 night. The Ravens at 27, they're going to have some interesting selections and some interesting choices, assuming they don't trade up. And Mina Kimes on her show ended up talking a little bit with Todd McShay, and they did a mock draft. This is an interesting one to me because there are so many mixed opinions on Tyler Booker in Baltimore, but Mina Kimes said that when he dropped to 27 in the mock draft on her show, the Mina Kimes show, she goes, the league is going to be infuriated if this man has fallen to the Baltimore Ravens, Tyler Booker. She also had a pass rusher in the equation, but Todd McShay when responding to that, said, quote, "It always happens. This is a team that wants to run the football. It's a really good fit. You go back to Ozzie, this organization, they're so patient. They wait. It feels like they're always picking in the 20s, and there's always someone that falls to them. Knowing the Ravens, they might even move back 3 or 4 spots and still get Booker and get an additional pick." And I can't agree with Todd McShay more about, like, it just feels so Ravens to have that happen. Like, every year, teams either overthink the draft or there's a guy that inexplicably falls and the Ravens say, okay, like, this is, if you're just going to let us have him, we're going to take him. I don't know what you're thinking here. For Baltimore, there's always been conversations about needs and best player available strategy. Q, we know the Ravens love their best player available strategy. Booker, I think, would constitute that at 27. You and I have talked about the offensive line and how you are very adamant, and I shared this with you, that they should not draft someone to sit behind Ronnie Stanley for a year or sit on the bench for a season. But if Tyler Booker comes in and can start for you, he's going to be a great 10 to 12-year player. The issue with Baltimore is that their scheme requires a bit more athleticism out of your offensive lineman. At least that's ideal. Tyler Booker is not athletic. He did not test well at the combine. You look at some of the tape and some of the scouting reports, the foot speed is average. Laterally, he's not great. Are you taking, I don't want to call it a risk, but essentially a risk that Booker might not fit in the scheme of Baltimore if he's there? Or do you think take the player, he's going to be one of the best on the board, figure out the rest later like we've seen Baltimore do so many times?
I don't know if you could figure out and just, roll the dice on a guy that's supposed to be your first round pick. And we're talking about win now. I think the mindset should be, a later pick, possibly go ahead, take him. Realize that this guy is going to come in, learn the system, learn how we do things, be a pro. It sounds like Booker wasn't in exactly the greatest of shape when it came to running a 40. You got to run and you got to have some speed. The only way you're going to get speed is by training for it. At the same time, some of the other measurables look like he has the strength, the size, and all of the intangibles that way. The tape and the workout didn't match up. So maybe those are red flags when it comes to how hard you want to work. Do you really love football? You want guys in that first and second round to love the game. You can't afford to have a bust. You can't afford to have a guy that is just in it for the money or the fame or the popularity. You got to have it because this is what you love to do. This is your vocation and having fun at getting better. So is Booker that guy? I think if from a due diligence standpoint, if in fact the Ravens are looking at him and brought him in to the local day and or did some other assessments and figuring out, because remember, while other teams use a national scouting database and scouting network, the Ravens are in-house exclusive. And Steve Bisciotti, pays that extra to have that in-house exclusive. So I'd be curious to see what they sleuthed up to figure out whether or not what Booker did was an outlying element to his personality and his makeup.
I've been on the Tyler Booker train. I think that Booker would be, despite the athletic limitations that he, obviously people look at the combine. I mean, you can go right back to Kyle Hamilton, and sometimes that completely influences teams' decisions to either draft or not. And for Hamilton's case, it was, oh, great, he can't run in a straight line for 40 yards quickly. So what? He has so many other intangibles. I don't know how you can pass on him, and somehow teams did, and he ended up in 14. For Booker, I understand that, look, offensive linemen in certain schemes don't work the way that they would in other schemes. But I think that Baltimore finds a way, and particularly Todd Monken finds a way, and this goes back to Georgia, this goes back to Cleveland, to Tampa, wherever, how far out you want to go back with Todd Monken. He finds ways to utilize players to the best of their ability and the best of their skill sets. Remember, Q, first year Todd Monken came into Baltimore, we were having conversations about, man, is Patrick Ricard about to get cut? Like, is he just going to be phased out of the system? Like, what's this going to look like? Ricard is stuck on the team, and he's had a prominent role, and Monken has adapted because, you can go back to years in Monken's offenses where he has been very heavy on the run, not a lot of pass stuff. You can also do the exact opposite, but he adapts to who he has. And I think that with him, Booker would be a really good option for them. He's someone that, again, he is a big guy. His upper body is super powerful. You know, when you watch the tape, he's able to recognize stuff quickly, pick up blitzers, and even with twists and stunts and all that, he is able to identify that well. He has a very strong anchor. I wouldn't ask him to pull a ton, and I think that's the issue where it's like, would Baltimore get away from that if they drafted Tyler Booker and like change their offense? I mean, I would hope they don't change their offense, so that becomes the scheme fit, I guess, problem that you would have to endure and encounter there. But one of his quotes reminded a lot of people of Ben Powers a couple years ago, where Ben Powers essentially said something along the lines of, I like, stealing the soul of my opponents. And Tyler Booker at the combine said, quote, what you see on play 1 is what you're going to see on play 80. I always try to finish you. I'm always trying to put you on your back. I'm always trying to take a little bit of your soul away, play after play. And he ended up going as far as saying it's legal assault out there. I make guys not love football anymore. I mean, that is just like tough nose, hard, rugged football mindset right there. Playing like a Raven, Q, you want guys who are going to go out there, do the dirty work, give you 100% effort. I mean, Tyler Booker would do that. I think that is something that, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not the best scheme fit, but I could see the Ravens kind of falling in love with a prospect who does have that type of, hey, I'm going to give you everything I got every snap type mindset.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because that is that type of a guy for, the physicality of the AFC North. My question would be, from a scheme standpoint, can he get to the second level? Can he seal off the backside if he's required? And yes, from a pulling aspect of things, in my mind, as I'm going through the this past season, some of the blocking schemes, they were pretty intricate in the inside zone versus outside zone versus just straight, G power. And can you pull a guard around? Can you, knock the guy down over the guard and let Derrick Henry beat Derrick Henry? Can you, be able to hold up in space? Because Lamar certainly, gives you the advantage of having the first play be the first act, and then there's a second act of the play. And you better be able to, make life miserable for a guy, not just in run blocking, but also in pass protection. What's your football IQ? That is where you're going to be able to sustain in this league, your football IQ. It's great to be physical and all that, but if you're not being able to properly communicate and identify the defensive look and you're having some misassignments, well, my friend, you're going to be sitting on the bench with all that tough guy stuff. So it's great to have it. I'm hoping he has a great football IQ and able to utilize it, those 80 snaps that he's talking about.
Yeah, and I certainly do think that the Ravens would find a way to make it work. I mean, again, I think that, are there better scheme fits the Ravens could take at 27 with even with tackle guard combos, like a Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, who does have that versatility and is a little more athletic. You could argue that, yes, that is a better scheme fit. But I think that Booker, he's a guy you put in the phone booth and you say, hey, just go block your guy, and he's going to do it, and he's not going to let pressure get to Lamar. Me personally, I think Booker would be a really solid option for him there. But coming up in the second part of the show, Mel Kiper Jr. joined the lounge. He talked about some draft fits for Baltimore. He is bullish on one prospect. He's been consistent about this throughout for Baltimore, as well as some pass rushing options as well. Stay tuned. A lot coming your way on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Plus, you can manage your money with your partner, and that is smoother than ever to do. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, you can use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail still talking Ravens football. Draft nearly 1 week away, which is crazy to say. Honestly, it feels like we were gearing up for 2024, and we're like, oh, the Ravens, are they going to take Cooper DeJean, or where are they going to go with this pick? And I don't even know if we talked about Nate Wiggins, you and I don't even remember if we thought he was an option. Lo and behold, we find out he's the number 1 corner on their board.
The way in which they have this clandestine, like, misdirection, try to show you one thing, sleight of hand for another, and Cooper DeJean. Like, what? Wait, how? That to me just is why I don't like the offseason, because during the season, no, really, seriously, like during the season, mini camp, I can see OTAs, I can see training camp, I can see that, Tez Walker, is explosive and fast, yet when he went with the ones, he wasn't quite there yet. But boy, you talk about him in North Carolina and all the things, and ooh, wow, you just get caught up in all of it all. You're like, all right, but I want to see it. Or, you do look at Tyler Linderbaum and you do say, man, that guy, he's going to be something, because you're seeing him go up against other, high level offensive linemen or D linemen, and he's more than holding his own. He's not having those misassignments. Kyle Hamilton, heck, even in training camp, I forget the one receiver. It was at the Ravens day at M&T Bank, and he gets beat by the wide receiver. Dude whoops him. Man, homeboy was like, all right, you got it. It's football. And everybody, mocking him now. What? Now you see a whole bunch of 14 Hamilton jerseys around because homeboy's a player. Yeah, what's up with his all-pro self? So, again, the clandestine craziness of this offseason, it's just the way it is. I get it. I understand it. I respect it. But, man, until you put them pads on, you just don't know. And I think there are guys that, would tell you that, as much as they have done their due diligence, it's still a crapshoot.
Yeah, man, I remember the exact rep you're talking about, where, again, and that was on just
it was like a high 7 route, very hard to defend.
And those drills are favored. Aren't those drills are favored towards the offense anyway? Like, that's favored. I mean, I know you've run plenty of routes on those one-on-ones. Like, those are favored towards you. Yeah. And for Hamilton, he's not like, he's a great cover guy in the slot now, but like, obviously learning his way and figuring all that out. Like, again, bad reps happen all the time, and I think that was just in front of everybody to see. It was a televised stadium practice. Everybody saw it. And, you look at that one rep and you're like, oh, really? They didn't need a safety, and now he's losing reps to, who's this guy? And look where we are now, Q. I think it all worked out all right, don't you?
I think it did. I mean, again, I think that's where you really, let's be honest. I saw I saw a lot of Lamar Jackson's rookie debut with mini camps and OTAs and all that. And that ball was like wobble. And there was so much buzz around, like, oh, he's not this, oh, he's not that. Okay, 8 years later, like, just more than established himself as a bona fide, just A++ Hall of Fame credentialed passer / runner / multi-threat / multiple-time MVP. All we got to do is just put a ring on it. Bam, and then you're going to be like, you already first ballot. It's just going to solidify your first ballot mantra and credentials. So I've seen it then. I see the progression into it. You got to see it. You just got to see it, and I think for our example of Kyle Hamilton, clearly people were jumping way to conclusions with the combines and clearly jumping way to conclusions with a portion of a practice that favors one side of the football over the other.
Every time I get reminded Lamar is entering year 8, I'm just like, where is the time gone? This man is about to be 30 years old soon. I remember when he stepped up on that podium with Deion Sanders right when the draft. This was before Deion any of the coaching stuff happened, right? He was that NFL Network, and he said, we're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that? Like, we're still waiting, but I have belief in Lamar. I know that the city of Baltimore has belief in Lamar, and the fact that he's entering year 8 is unreal. And the fact that we've seen him mature and grow as a person and a player so much has been unbelievable. But that's what it is with these players. Q, you mentioned it. Like the Ravens, they have a vision for these guys. Sometimes that's an immediate contribution vision. Other times it's more of, okay, let's see a couple years down the line how this works out. And so for Baltimore, I think ideally get a couple of starters in this draft that have that immediate impact. You see a vision there, and then you supplant that or you supplement it with a bunch of other guys that can, hey, maybe a year or two down the line, they can contribute for you when some of these expensive vets move out of the way for younger players. So Mo Kiper Jr., he did join the lounge. He talked about some pass rushing prospects. They also had Dane Brugler of The Athletic on, who does a monstrous, the Beast draft guide, and that is incredible. But Mel Kiper has been all in on the Malachi Starks to Baltimore train. Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. He's, to some, the top-rated safety. To others, Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina has surpassed him due to the combine. And speaking of combines, Emanwari had one of the best combines we have ever seen in the history of the event for a player of his size, which, look at teams wanting their next Kyle Hamilton. A lot of people are already dubbing Emanwari as the more athletic version of Kyle Hamilton, but you got a long way to go if you want to be what Kyle Hamilton's done over the first handful of years in his NFL career. But Malachi Starks is someone I do really like. He's athletic. He has a ton of ball skills and range. His size is a little bit on the smaller side, which does lead to durability and injury questions, but there's a lot to like about him. The safety position, Q, we've talked about it, you and I, a ton. Hamilton there, or Darius Washington, hopefully being retained. We haven't really heard a lot about that situation. I'd be floored if they let him walk out of the building, especially with the tender he received. Do you feel like first-round safety be a pick you'd be? I mean, we did our game last week about, jumping for joy. You picked corner over safety when it came to what we had last week. Would you be okay with them taking a safety in the first round, or do you think they have enough there? You'd rather see it spent somewhere else, and you'd be fine with a safety in like the second or third or even fourth round?
I would say if it is a Malachi Starks, that he would be a great fit for what the Ravens are doing because of the win now mantra. I think the way you have it with Ardarius, you would have Kyle, jack of all trades. You got a guy that could learn. You then also are talking about the way the secondary is it's fluid and not necessarily a rigid, traditional secondary. So, whether it be Marlon Humphrey moving over into the slot, and we've talked about that so many times on this show where we recognize his value in that nickel role and just playing, that really tough position. Could you imagine a Malachi Starks roaming in the back, with Ardarius, and you got a big nickel in the game with, a big dime, I should say, in a game where you got Kyle Hamilton, you got Ardarius, but then you also, are looking at Marlon, Marlo up on the line as well. My goodness, man, I know they didn't retain Arthur Millette, but the Ardarius Starks duo allowing Kyle to be Kyle might just satisfy that and be in the discussion. And then you're hoping for, not hoping in like some like, oh my God, mystical way, but a TJ Tampa being able to, step into his own and then becoming, that other corner piece that would be, like, I think, a tremendous look at secondary. And Chuck Pagano and them be like, yes, we are going to do it. So it would make me feel good when we're going up against, who was it in Pittsburgh that Pittsburgh signed? You got Pickens and
DK Metcalf.
Yes. It'll make me feel a heck of a lot better in that regard. Heck, it'll help make me feel a heck of a lot better now that T Wiggins and Jamar Chase over in Cincy. You got to just recognize your division and also who are the main players in that element. And so I think defensively, I think a Malachi Starks would be a great fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Starks, even Worry, even I did a trade down mock draft yesterday. I had them trading down to 39 and taking Xavier Watts. There are like those top three safeties. Each of them would be a great fit for different reasons. But I think, again, you don't want a pure box safety at this point. Like, obviously, Hamilton, when he's at his best, he's roaming around there. You want someone who has those ball hawk skills. Obviously, what you wanted Marcus Williams to become with that big contract, what Earl Thomas gave you for that 1 year on the field, not off of it. And then obviously Ed Reed for all those years as the ball hawking center fielder of that Ravens secondary. When they have a player like that who can do that, consistently, that is when this Ravens defense is at their best. So coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the front seven of the defense, talk about the pass rush because Mel Kiper, Dane Brugler, they had a couple of names that they like for Baltimore. So we'll talk about those and how important this draft is for Baltimore coming up next. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Now, I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. For those that don't know, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy. The Nuggets secured the 4 seed on Sunday. They're facing off against the Clippers in the first round. Right now, game one, Nuggets over on FanDuel are favored by 3 points. So if you want to pick my side of the coin here and pick Denver, you should do that if you so choose. But if you want the Clippers, that's a team that is intriguing to me and could really make some noise in the postseason. So over on FanDuel, don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Locked on Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail, still talking Ravens football. As we do here, Q joins the show each and every single week, breaking down Ravens football, and there's always something to talk about. Even though it's the offseason, football is a year-round sport. So we're breaking down everything here on Locked On Ravens. Q. Mel Kiper also talked about some pass rushers that he thinks make sense. Dane Brugler also talked about them as well. Someone who I think is really intriguing is who's been shooting up some draft boards is Donovan Izuraku out of Boston College, where you talk about the Ravens and their prototypical who do they draft on the edge. They're like taking bigger guys. Now, Izuraku stands right around like 6'2", 245, 250-ish. But the production is there. He had 16 and a half sacks in his senior season, only trailing Mike Green, who was supposed to go way earlier than 27. He has bend, the closing ability to converge on the quarterback. He's not that 6'4", 6'5" guy. But me personally, I don't dock as much for the whole size aspect or measurements aspect. If the guy can play, the guy can play. He has an 82 and 3/4 inch wingspan, which does make up for some of the size concerns. I think he's a guy that if he's available at 27, I wouldn't overthink it with the size. If he is the right fit for your defense, take him regardless of how tall or how big he is.
Yeah, I heard Mel Kiper talking about the bends and having the ability to bend. Basically, Dwight Freeney, Syracuse alum, shout out. Dwight Freeney, Hall of Famer, one of the things that made him so incredible, Von Miller, so incredible, Elvis Dumervil, so incredible is that ability to confuse and confound a tackle on the edge who has that size and that reach. And the moment he is reaching for you, you're able to dip that shoulder and bend that spine in such a way that literally your hand, your knees, you're like, this is my bottom hand is the ground. This is the bending that we're talking about. Like you're just on such a aggressive angle that you can just get around that tackle and be balanced and athletic enough to then therefore get to the quarterback and changing that direction, changing that structure of your body, being able to bend is something that is rare. And when you got it, you become one of those pass rushing disruptors. a guy that can close out a game, a Max Crosby, what we saw when the Las Vegas Raiders came here early last season. Crosby closed out the first half and came back when it was time, and Lamar and them needed a play to continue to drive. He closes it out yet again. We've seen that with Trey Henderson. Oh, geez. TJ Watt, the Bendables, boom, he's coming up being a disruptor. Being that guy when you have yet again a division that has those upper tier quarterbacks and a conference that big time has those upper tier quarterbacks, you better have that pass rush guy that can have that nastiness to him, not a guy that can almost get there and put pressure on a quarterback, but make a play, make a strip, force fumble, the whole nine. That is something that really would be fitting for the Ravens. And I think my guy from Boston College, he looks to be that part.
It's so interesting with the way that the pass rushers differ throughout this class, especially the ones who are expected to be on the board, where Baltimore is expected to pick at 27. Again, they could trade up or trade back from that spot. One of them, not Izuraku, was Shamar Stewart. Now, kind of a little bit of a Adafe Owe in terms of the path. Great potential, like incredible, but not a lot of college production. You can talk about production and, how much you like the guy just based off of pure potential, but because Stewart didn't have a lot of production in college, Mel Kiper Jr. does not see Stewart putting on a Ravens uniform. He says, quote, "I don't think Shamar Stewart will be a Raven just because of the fact that when you watch him, I didn't see the disruptive plays. I didn't see him beating a guy initially that he should have." Also, Dane Brugler mentioned that there's a lot of outcomes. Maybe Stewart gets taken in the top 15, or it could be on the board at 27. He said he wouldn't be surprised either way. Michael Williams is another guy that both Kiper and Dane Brugler talked about of potential Ravens fit. This is an important draft regardless, because the Ravens have a lot of options that they need to sort through here. To you, do you think that you'd be okay with them just getting like a Wiggins, Rosengarten, two really solid contributors, and guys that contribute for you all season? Or do you want more than that? Would you rather have four guys that contribute for you all season? Obviously, ideally, everybody contributes, but that's not the way it goes. How important is this draft in terms of immediate impact versus not?
Well, I guess if you're looking at somebody who's a project and yet is good, Shamar Stewart, then go ahead, knock yourself out. But I don't think this is a team that, is looking for all that. I don't think, you're at that pick, the value isn't there. Like the guy is, a guy that can, go to some other team that might not have, they and their expectations as a franchise is not where the expectations are for the Ravens. Therefore, I would simply say Shamar Stewart just is not the right fit. You're trying to get a now type player. You're not trying to get multiple players and kind of like, look at what we got. We'll be okay. We're trying to look at, a key member because, again, you already looked at what you had last year, and you're hoping that now those guys turn into some now type players, the TJ Tampas, the Adisa Isaacs of the world, like consistently playing and not just, strong contributors, but consistently playing. So I think ultimately, I want one guy be amazing. Two would be, wow, go ahead and, sign it. We're about to go to the Super Bowl and let's live large and prosper.
So many different outcomes. I mean, literally there are an infinite amount that the Ravens could have going for them on draft night. Again, almost 1 week away. Hugh, appreciate your time as always. Tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can find me and interact with me for human movement and sports performance training. Missiletraining.com. It doesn't matter if you're a team. It doesn't matter if you're an individual. Age, regardless. You need to learn how to move and learn how to move with efficiency and durability. So as early as 6 all the way up to 85 years of age, that's my clientele. Love to work with you and interact with you. WJZ is where you can also find me for my Purple shows. WJZ as far as Purple Pregame, Purple Connection, Purple Playbook. You'll find me on all of them. And yes, love hanging out, talking shop with you each and every week on Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and I, we break it down with you, talking some football Raven style. And at the same time, I'm telling you this. There's the offseason, there's the end season. The end season version is the better version of me. My offseason version, yeah, we try our best. But I like to see it and I like to interact with it. So interact with both Kevin and I. We'll give you all your Raven needs.
Yeah, I know Q won't say it. He's good all year round, off season, in season. He knows his stuff. Links all in the description down below for Q's work. Be sure to check him out and be sure you go work with him over at Missile Training. Q, appreciate you as always. And thank you to everybody who tuned in, watched, listened today to Locked On Ravens. On the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up tomorrow, we'll of course be back with more Ravens coverage for you. So be sure to stay tuned and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.